Hi, welcome to Learning Not to Swear with Ted Lyde. I'm your host, Ted Lyde. This is the podcast where we talk about life and the challenges and the struggles and the celebration of life. Today we're going to talk about Michael Jackson. Today we're going to talk about Halloween. I'm sitting with Shana Mangatal.
Hi, Ted.
Today, I'm so worried about saying it wrong again.
He always mispronounces my name. And how many times have I been on this podcast?
Shana Mangatal is here
like
today.
a million.
To talk about Michael Jackson and his affinity for Halloween and scariness and goose. See, I guess why ghosts and goblins and scary stuff. That's what we're going to talk about today. Your favorite experience or your favorite scary video. Mine is always going to be Thriller. I'm sorry.
You like Thriller?
I'm partial to Thriller. I think Ghost is great, and I've seen little snippets of Is It Scary? Mm-hmm. And I like that song. It's from the Blood on the Dance Floor album.
Yeah, you have a good memory.
Yeah. So, but there'll never be another Thriller.
Well, Michael, I had the fortunate blessing of being in 2 short films with Michael that were scary. And the first one was called Is This Scary?
Right.
And it was going to be the theme song for the Addams Family Values movie. The second one that I did was 3 years later. That was in 1993. We never finished it because right in the middle of filming, the Jordan Chandler allegations hit. They weren't public yet, but Michael found out that they were about to go public. And Michael was just so devastated when he found out about this that he started getting sick, and he started calling in sick. And I was like, this is strange because Michael never calls in sick. Michael was a workaholic, and he was so excited about filming Is This Scary? Stephen King had written it.
Right.
Stephen was on the set, and
now Jordan Chandler, I've never been able to keep up with. I know there was 3 major accusations throughout his career. 3? Wasn't there 3? Wasn't like the last one?
Oh,
he was acquitted.
You're right. Yeah.
So that would be the final, but there was 2 prior to that.
No, I was thinking the last one would be Leaving Neverland, which is Wade Robson and Jimmy Safechuck.
But aren't those guys are old guys who've just come back?
Right. So they had never accused him before now. Before that was Gavin Arvizo. That was the whole trial that Michael went through.
Okay.
And then before that was Jordan Chandler.
So that brings a total of 5 accusers.
Right. So anyway, let's get back to the topic.
Yeah,
we'll get to that stuff later.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mean to be, it's like I said, I'm one of those fans who loved him so much that I just all of those accusations are like a blur to me. I can't. If you lined all those guys up, I wouldn't be able to tell you
who was who.
Yeah,
really.
If I bumped into all of them at the grocery store, I wouldn't.
You might. And you know what? Here's something a lot of people don't know. I actually bumped into Jordan Chandler at the grocery store.
What?
Yes, about 2 months ago or so.
Did you have some words for him?
No, I was in shock because none of us have seen him in decades.
I would have said something.
And I wasn't sure it was him because, I don't really know what he looks like as an adult. But I was looking at him. At first, I was just looking at him because I was like, wow, that's a really handsome looking guy standing over there. And then I looked closer and I was like, wait a minute, there's something interesting about this guy. And then I looked closer and I was like, oh my God, that's Jordan Chandler. So
there were no words exchanged?
No, but he was in there like forever. So he literally bought the entire store. His shopping basket was full. And then he went to pay for it. So I was like, well, I'm going to go pay for my stuff now. So I got in line behind him. And because he had so much stuff, we were in line, next to each other for quite a long time. And he was so embarrassed that he was, he had bought so much stuff that, he looked at me and smiled. And I just, I giggled because it was kind of embarrassing that he had so much stuff. He was really nice. Of course, I didn't mention Michael. I was actually worried that he might recognize me. I don't know how much he's been paying attention to Michael these days, but I just didn't know what to say or what to do, so I just stood there and smiled and just observed him. And I filmed him on my camera, but I didn't want to secretly. But I didn't want to
Listen, Mr.
Release it, because I really don't want people to
25,
pound him.
Mr. 25 years after the fact coming out with...
No, that's not him. See,
I told you I can't keep them separated.
Yeah.
I can't keep them separated.
Jordan Chandler was in 1993, and he hasn't been seen again since.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Wade and Jimmy that are coming out.
That came out of the woodwork.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, Jordan Chandler is alive and well, and he's living, I guess, down the street from me. We're neighbors. Who would have thought?
Well, after the show, let's go over there.
I'll show you the pictures on my
I
phone.
want to go over there. If he lives where you know where he lives, let me talk to him.
We could stake him out. How about that?
Get Ted Lyde on TMZ.
Yeah, it's I was so shocked and excited when it happened. I didn't know what to do, and I was like, oh my God, I could probably make millions of dollars if I just sell these pictures. But then I was like, but if I do that, you know,
it's too late for you to start. It's too late for you to start being shady now.
I know, right?
You missed the shady bust a long time ago.
I couldn't be shady. I'm sorry. But
that's why you need me.
So Jordan Chandler is my neighbor, basically. And if I see him again, I'll let you guys know.
But you won't confront him about his accusations and the holes in his story.
No, I'm scared. I'm not. But he seemed nice. I mean, he was smiling and normal.
So that's what I'm saying. You're a good person. You're not drawing any. You're not coming down on any side of the argument because you don't have enough data to come down.
You know, these are all human beings. We all make choices in life. So I'm not one to judge. Okay. All I can do is share my personal experiences with Michael Jackson.
Right.
I don't know what their personal experience was, but mine was wonderful.
Right. And
the Michael I knew
never came up to you
abuse
and
a child.
You know what I like? I like to abuse children. He never said that.
No, he never did that.
Okay. Well, there you go. So, I mean, and there was never any evidence in your experience with him that would suggest that.
No, he loved children. He was really one of them. He was like a peer to them. It wasn't like he was an adult preying on them. He was one of them. He liked playing video games.
That's why I get defensive, because I come down on the side of people being predators and saying, I'm going to take advantage of this guy's naivete or his generosity or his or take advantage of my access to him and do a cash grab.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think everyone should be very grateful to have just been in Michael's life. He changed everybody's life that he touched, including those boys who are accusing him now. He gave them careers. He taught Wade Robson how to dance like him. Without Michael, he would not have the choreography career that he has. He would not have the record deal that he got with MJJ Records. So all of this, to take all that back then and then 20 years later come back and try to get more millions of dollars, that's just not right. No matter how you cut it, even people who think Michael's guilty, do you really honestly think it's right for these boys to come and try to get millions of dollars after already taking millions of opportunities that were afforded to them because of Michael's generosity 20 years ago?
Well, that's a good question. What I know about show business, what I know about my exposure to being in show business and around show business people, is that relationships run hot and cold in this business, as in any avenue, of life. Relationships run hot and cold. And I think that one of the things I believe to be true is that at one minute you're hot and you're in Michael Jackson's, you're the center of his attention and he's showering you with, trips and attention and music. And then the things shift and now your calls don't get answered as quickly as they used to, and maybe you're not getting the invitations that you once got, which happens in this town.
Yeah.
And so then you say, well, screw him. I'll fix him.
Yeah.
I know what I can do.
Right.
And then you make up a story that You know,
Yeah, that's just wrong.
instead of floating away and saying
Floating away with your tail between your legs,
or just saying, "Hey, listen,
it was nice knowing you."
We've all you.
That's what I had to do. I mean, I have personal experience with Michael Jackson, sort of, cutting me out of his world,
right?
Gradually.
Now, did you say I'm going to get him, and I'm going to say he did horrible things to me?
Yeah, no. I mean, you see what I do now. I remember the good times, and I don't
Right.
dwell on any of the sad or upsetting times that I might have experienced with him. Plus, it's 25 years later. There's a perspective that you have to have 25 years later. You look back and you're like, wow, those were the best times of my life, and those would not have happened without Michael Jackson. So you have to be grateful, and you have to count your blessings instead of being negative about little things.
That's the way you see the world, and that's the way I see the world, and that's my experience as well. But there are people out there who go, I want a new car, and I don't like my crappy apartment. Who can I, and you could wake up tomorrow and say that, and you could go to some shrink that told you these are memories that you lost, and I'm going to help you get them back.
Yeah.
And now you.
But even if that happened, I'm not going to come out and try to destroy a man who helped me immensely and made me happy immensely. I just wouldn't do that. I might tell you secretly that that's what happened, but in the public, I'm not going to destroy this man's legacy who worked so hard to attain it.
We'll see where we both are in 20 years, and we both might need some Michael Jackson money and start conjuring up memories.
Ted's going to be like, well, Shana told me back at
Just
October
hypnotize you.
2019.
You don't remember?
Yeah.
You don't remember?
Remember you told me?
But that's what people do. They do horrible things to line their own pockets.
For money, for attention. And some people, who knows, maybe they actually believe that this stuff happened because they are in therapy. And when you're in therapy, I've never been to therapy, but I heard that, they kind of make you think back and think, oh, well, so how did that make you feel? And suddenly you're like, well, him dumping me 20 years ago made me feel really bad. And I'm emotionally distraught, so I need some money.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's happened. I don't know. I'm not here to bash any Wade or Jimmy. I'm not that kind of person.
I am. I'm that kind of person.
I'm not. Or Jordan. Jordan seemed like a lovely young man. But, we're all on our own journeys. We all do things for our own reasons. And, we all have to answer to the same place at the end of the day, or our lives, I should say. So, yeah, you got to take it kind of that way and not get too angry about things.
Okay, so let's talk about your experience. Let's get back on track.
Okay.
Your experience on the...
Is it scary?
What was it?
And ghosts.
Yeah, so let's talk about is it scary?
Okay, so Is This Scary, as I said, was supposed to be the title track to Addams Family Values, which was the sequel to Addams Family.
Right.
Stephen King wrote it. Michael was so excited to do it. And I was fortunate enough to get cast as one of the townspeople in the film. And we had a great actor playing the mayor at the time, and other really wonderful actors, as well as the child cast of Addams Family. They were in it. Christina Ricci and the other kids. And it was wonderful. The first few days, Michael and I were laughing. I was the only one that he knew on the set, so he kind of gravitated to me, and we were always like whispering in each other's ears. It was great because it was my first experience really working with him, on a set. So I was over the moon. I was like, oh my God, I'm standing here next to Michael Jackson. I'm in a Michael Jackson, not even a music video, but a short film. I thought I died and gone to heaven. It was the culmination of all of my dreams coming true.
Listen, you. We want you out of town. You don't belong here.
And I remember the first scene we shot, he like walks out in a like a cape with a hood on, and we're supposed to say, come out where we can see you, come out where we can see you. Because there was we were townspeople we were marched up to Michael's mansion telling him that he had to get out of our town because he was too weird and scary and that he was scaring our children.
What did you want?
We want you out of town. You don't fit in here.
You're not like us.
Why do I have to be?
You're not like anybody. You're weird. These kids think you're scary.
I'm scary?
Which is really ironic because the Jordan Chandler allegations hadn't even happened yet. And yet this whole video foretold everything that was about to come, like in a few weeks. I still look back on that and think, wow, that's not art imitating life, that's life imitating art.
Yeah.
It's deep. So
Yes.
we lived this before it happened. We were having this dialogue. We were telling Michael, you're a freak, you're a weirdo, you're scaring our children, you need to get out of town. And his lines were, why do you think I'm weird? And then I remember he kneeled down and he said, son, do you think I'm scary?
Son, do you think I'm scary?
You bet you're scary. You're a weirdo and we want you out of town.
And the son was like, no. And the father was like, yes, you are scary. So, and that's kind of what happened with Jordan Chandler's father, pretty much, leading the way with the allegations and the son sort of just going along with it. But that's what it just happened in real life. And I lived that with Michael. And so I still think back and think, wow, that's crazy,
Yeah, it's bizarre, and I can't even find any words to describe how heartbreaking that must have been.
And as that was happening, there was a scene where we had to scream nasty names at Michael. So we were saying, you freak, you weirdo, you this, that, everything that Michael had ever been called in life, we had to scream it at him. And Michael was standing like right here, like maybe, inches away, a foot at the most. And we had to, off camera, scream these things to him, and he had to react to it.
You're weird. You scare our kids. You're weird. You're a freak.
I didn't do anything to any of you. Know what you can do for me? Kiss right here. Kiss right here. You're a swine. You're a pig. Go to hell. Every last one of you pigs.
And he just looked so sad. And I was like, I wonder why he suddenly looks sad. Because like the first day he was his old happy-go-lucky self. Laughing and joking, and then by like the third day, there was just a sadness in his eyes, and he was like in a daze. And I was thinking, wonder what's wrong with him. And I remember our very very first scene, to go back to the cape and the hood that I was telling you about, where he walks out on our first day. I had been in rehearsal earlier, and they had a stand-in doing his part. So I knew like what he was supposed to do and what the lines were supposed to be when he turned around and all of that. But Michael hadn't been in rehearsal. So when he came on the set, they just thought he would know what to do. And the cameras were about to roll, and he leaned over to me and whispered in my ear and said, what am I supposed to do? When do I turn around? So I had to, like, in his ear, direct him on what to do. I say, so he's going to say this, and then that's when you turn around. He was like, oh, okay, thank you. So it was pretty funny. I was like, wow, I'm telling Michael what to do. I'm the director. No, I'm kidding. But, it was pretty cool, to tell him what to do. And he listened, and he got it right.
Did he get it? to do any dancing while you guys were working on it?
Not on this one. He called in sick and kept calling in sick after a while, and that was another thing on one of the first few days. In one of our previous podcasts, I mentioned a song that he had dictated to me, and it was called Family Thing. And that was supposed to be for that short film, Is This Scary? And that was supposed to be the song that would be featured in this short film, and it would just be everywhere. He had given me the lyrics, and so I knew about the song. And then when we were on set, I was like, oh, Michael, did you ever record that song that you gave me? He was like, no, I haven't even recorded it yet. So we were on set and the song hadn't even been recorded. So obviously we didn't do the song or the dance part because he was just too distraught. The Jordan Chandler stuff it killed him. Like, he didn't die until 2009, but it started in 1993.
So, okay. So for those who are listening who are like me, let's do a timeline. So the Jordan Chandler, that was the last accusation where he went to trial?
No, that was the first. The Chandler accusations were the first accusations in 1993.
Okay, so is this the boy that had signed an agreement to not say anything, and then
that's the one he settled with.
Right, and then after that,
and then he kind of disappeared, and we never heard from him again until a couple of months ago at my grocery store. But Jordan Chandler was sort of, quiet until, forever. Like, we never heard from him again. And then exactly 10 years later were the next allegations by Gavin Arvizo and his family.
They lived at the house for a while.
They were staying at Neverland for a while, and their accusations were really ridiculous. Really, he was the little boy who appeared on the Martin Bashir. Do you remember the it's document interview?
The guy followed Michael around for a while and made him look crazy. And
right.
Filmed him buying stuff at his store.
Yeah. And Gavin Arvizo was the little boy who was on there with him, like holding his hand in place. The cancer victim. He was dying of cancer. And Michael, out of the kindness of his heart, took Gavin and his family in and healed him. Healed Gavin of cancer. And so then the Martin Bashir interview aired, and...
When you say healed, you mean helped pay for and facilitate treatment?
I don't think he paid, but just being... I think that is what happened. Like, I'm serious, though. Being around Michael, you felt like he could heal you because he made you so happy. And another funny thing that happened on that set, there was a little black boy who was one of the stars of the film. And I saw him, he kept like staring at Michael's hair. And Michael's hair was the Michael Jackson hair we all know and love, the curly, long hair. And the little boy was looking at Michael, and finally he got up the nerve, and the little boy said to Michael, when you were little, your hair was big. Why is it...
straight and curly now?
Yeah, why is it different now? And Michael looked at me, because I was the only other black person on the set, so we kind of had a bond simply because of that, because, we got each other.
Your hair is similar.
Right, we have similar hair. So he looked at me, and I said, don't look at me. I can't wait to hear you answer this one. And so he didn't know what to say. He was speechless.
Right.
And so then he saw his makeup artist, Karen Faye, and he was like, oh, go ask that girl over there. She'll know. So he passed it off on Karen. And so then he called Karen over, and he was like, Karen, come here. And so he asked the little boy to repeat the question, and then Karen said, oh, well, that was an afro that he was wearing back then. This is different. It's a different hairstyle now. And Michael said, yeah, it's a different hairstyle. But he was very open and willing to answer any question, especially if you were a kid.
Right. But, said, you know what? You're fired.
Little boy, you're fired for asking me that question.
So did you see him anymore after the allegations hit? And
he sort of disappeared. He started calling in sick, and then I saw him on the very last day, which was I'll never forget. It was August 17th, and that was also the day that things really were about to hit the press. August 17th, and that was the last time I saw him before it really hit. And then he disappeared and went off on his Dangerous tour, and then he left that, went to rehab, and went into so-called hiding. When he left to go on tour, he started calling, and the allegations had hit, and his voice sounded like, I don't know, I was just so worried. He didn't sound good at all. You know, he was deeply depressed, and his managers told me, you know, he was even suicidal. You know, they were worried that he wouldn't make it through the night, and that just broke my heart to see pretty much the last time he was the happy-go-lucky Michael Jackson we all know and love, and then to witness the change that really never left him until 2009. You know, he had moments of happiness, but there was still that underlying sadness that, you know, a child of all people could do this to him. And to hear him on the phone while he was on tour. And the other thing is, you know, I was working with his managers, and we were the people in charge of that tour. So whenever he got sick and it was just too upset to perform, it had to come through us. Like, we had to be the people to cancel that night's show.
Right.
So whenever Michael would call on the night of a show, I knew he was going to cancel, because Michael never called on nights of shows. So whenever he would call, and he would be like, "Hey, it's Michael for Sandy," and I'd be like, "Oh God, it's show night. That means we're not going to have a show." So then he would pretty much call in sick to us, and then my bosses, his managers, would have to cancel that night's show. And then, and so finally I got up the nerve to mention the allegations to him, because I didn't know what to say. It was like the elephant in the room, you know. It's like he's calling, and I know he's just so distraught. And the last time I was with him, we were on set with these same, pretty much the same scenario. We were acting it out.
Right.
And here it had come true. So finally I got up the nerve one day, and I said, you know, "Michael, I just want to let you know I love you, and I'm here for you, and everything's going to be okay." And he was quiet for a minute, and then he said, "Oh my God, thank you so much. That means so much to me." He said, "I love you too, and I miss you." And it was just, it was heartbreaking, you know, because he really was reaching out and needed anyone to believe in him at that point. And
well, I imagine, it's the type of situation where people are reluctant to say anything because you don't know what to say,
right?
So you don't say anything, and then therefore you don't offer that person any kind of help or support or acknowledgement that might give them, you know, some courage or some strength to move on, because you feel awkward and you don't say anything, and it just makes them sink.
Oh, she doesn't care. I'm so glad, even though I was very young, that I realized I need to say something, because sometimes you wouldn't. You might just be like,
no,
you know, I'm not going to bring it up. But that sort of taught me later in life, and even today, always say what's on your mind, especially if someone's going through something hurtful or bad. Always say something if you are supporting them, because everyone, it doesn't matter how much of a superstar you are, you want to know that you're still loved,
yes,
and that you have friends and you have someone to talk to and who will support you. So me doing that really bonded us even more. And after I said that, then he was like, "Oh, remember the video we just did?" This like sparked a whole conversation from him, remembering the scenes in this film Is This Scary that were mirroring real life. So he started like recounting the dialogue that had been said, and so it turned into a happy conversation, because he started laughing, remembering how much fun we had on the set.
So, yeah, it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that the whole story is just heartbreaking, and you just wish, you know, that there had been a voice of reason that he would have trusted enough to just say, "Hey, you can love these kids and hang out with them as much as you want to, and be as generous as you want, as your heart desires. But you must always have a chaperone." That's all. You have to have a chaperone. You have to have someone who's there to say, "Nope, nothing bad happened." And
That's what I would have done. I mean, if one kid had accused me of, and he went through such a horrific experience, Michael did, having to be strip searched and all this crazy stuff. If that happened to me, I would like never be alone with the kid again. I'd be like, okay, that was God giving me my warning.
Yeah.
That's it. But Michael, you know, he was pretty stubborn, and he did what he wanted to do. And he felt, hey, I'm not doing anything bad. It's not wrong. So I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah. And that was his downfall.
Yeah, the problem is that even if you're not doing anything wrong, if there's no one there to substantiate your side of the story, then the lie gets wings. It grows wings and is able to fly. So your job is to have someone there to snip any wings of falsehood before they even, take air.
Yeah, that's true. That would have saved him a lot of trouble, but that wasn't Michael's personality.
Yeah, this is Dave. Dave's always here.
Yeah.
Dave hates kids.
He could have had you. No, you love kids.
I'm not going to take no crap off him. So, yeah.
It was kind of a defiance move. But he was very defiant. He's like, well, if you're going to accuse me of that, I'm going to show you it's not wrong.
I understand that based on how he was brought up. And he was basically, this indentured servant to his parents and to his family who had to feed the whole family and didn't really have any say in how he fed the family outside perform. So he didn't have a lot of say in his youth or in his young adult life.
True.
So when he got some freedom and some power, he was like, you know what? You don't tell me what to do.
That's true. Yeah, and no one could tell him what to do. That's for sure. I remember one time after he had settled, there was some other settlement meeting that was going on in the office, but it had nothing to do with allegations like that. It was some other completely different settlement, and his lawyer was in my office where I worked, the management office, and the lawyer was there, and they were in a big meeting with my bosses, his managers. I think it was John Branca actually, and so Michael called and asked to speak to Sandy, his manager. Okay. And I was like, oh, Michael, he's in a meeting. Can I have him call you back? He was like, meeting? What meeting is this? I said, oh, well, he's in there with John Branca. He said, John Branca? Why is he there? I said, oh, they're in a settlement meeting. I had gotten so flustered that he was asking me all these questions, because Michael could be extremely direct, and you didn't expect that from him, because usually he was like, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, when he really wanted to know something, he would just directly ask you questions and put you on the spot.
Well, there was a part of him that was a businessman, too.
Yeah.
And he understood what it meant to be a businessman and to be in charge of his business.
And he was in charge. Let me tell you. And this is a great example of it. So he was like, what meeting is that? And I said, oh, it says here, because I had a list of all the meetings and what they were about. I said, oh, it says here it's a settlement meeting. And he like flipped out. He said, settlement? What are they settling? Because he didn't really want to settle the first Jordan Chandler allegations, but Johnny Cochran and the lawyers had convinced him that this was the best thing to do, to just get it out of the way and move on with your life. So a few months later, when I said they're in a settlement meeting, he like went crazy. He was like, what are they settling? I said, oh, I don't know. Let me just go slip them a note and have them call you. So he was like, okay, I'll hold. So I was so nervous. I was like, oh God, Sandy's going to be mad that I told him that it was a settlement meeting and that he's in there with John Branca. I shouldn't have said anything.
You're snitch.
Right? But that was the fine line I was walking, because, I loved Michael just outside of the office. But on the other hand, I had a job to do, and I had to be loyal to my bosses. So
how did that play out? Did they calm him down? Or?
Yeah, so I slipped a note to, I think after that he wanted to talk to John Branca, not Sandy. So I went into the meeting, I slipped John Branca a note saying, Michael's on the line. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, transfer him in here. So I transferred Michael into the meeting, and I guess they told him what it was, and it was nothing to be alarmed about.
Did you hear him yelling and cussing?
No.
You listen to me!
No. I never heard Michael yell like that. He was tough in a different way. He could be very stern and very serious, but I never heard him like raise his voice like that. I'm sure maybe other people have, but I never witnessed that. And when someone is quiet and soft-spoken, when they're stern and direct, that's all you need. You don't need him to raise the voice, because I know it flustered me, because I was like, I got nervous because I'd never heard him like that before, and I was like, oh my God. And then another time, like the only other time where he was really upset was the day that they strip searched him. He called and he was like, can you just put me straight through to Sandy? I don't want to talk to anybody else. And he was just so upset on the other line.
I remember the video. He made a video statement about, and he was pretty outraged and talked about how they examined his penis and all this other stuff.
Yeah, he was outraged. And at the time, I didn't know what was going on, but I remember telling everyone at the office that, Sandy's other assistants, I was like, oh my God, wonder what is wrong with Michael, because he sounds really upset. And that I'd come to find out that's what it was. He had just been strip searched. So I was there through a lot of those historic moments. Sometimes I didn't know what had gone on, but now, reading back and looking at the dates, I realize it. So it was an incredibly crazy time. And so getting back on the timeline, he went to rehab, then he flew back. He made the settlement to Jordan Chandler. And another funny thing that happened, like maybe about a year after that, it was about 1994, we had the earthquake, the Northridge earthquake. Were you here for the earthquake?
I was not.
You weren't. Where were you living then?
I was in Chicago still. We didn't come here till 99.
Okay. Well, lucky you, because that Northridge earthquake was horrific. And Michael was living in the valley at the time, which is where the earthquake was centered. And I was living in the valley too. So those of us who lived in the San Fernando Valley got it much worse than anywhere else, because that's where it was centered. But a lot of people don't know this, and maybe I'm breaking some news here, but he, when he was married to Lisa, he not only lived with Lisa, but he would also stay with Dee Dee Jackson, who is the mother of 3T, which is Tito's sons. Okay. And Dee Dee also had a house in the valley. So if I recall correctly, Michael was at Dee Dee's house when the Northridge earthquake hit. And so about, I'd say 6 months after that, we had like another little earthquake. But when that Northridge earthquake happened, Michael left immediately and like went to New York. He was like, I'm out of here. Yeah. He hated earthquakes. Yeah. But we had another little earthquake about 6 months later, and Michael happened to call like right after we had it. And I was like, I'm sorry, Michael, we just had an earthquake. The phones are kind of crazy. He was like, you had an earthquake? He got so excited. And he was like, you had an earthquake? How big was it? Was it big? I said, it wasn't that big, but it was enough to kind of scare me. He was like, oh my God, see, I'm so glad you guys had an earthquake. I said, what? Why would you say that? He said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean, but, I told everyone that, when we had the last earthquake, that everyone needed to leave LA. And that's exactly what I did. I left and went straight to, I think he went straight to New York, he said, because he was in New York when he was calling. And he said, I told everyone, no one listened to me.
First of all, everybody doesn't have move to New York money, Michael.
Right? You can't just up and move to New York.
I'm breaking my lease and moving to New York because I don't like earthquakes.
Well, that's what Michael did. And he said, my father is just like me, Joe Jackson. Mm-hmm. His father moved to Vegas as soon as
after the
earthquake. This tough, guy was afraid of earthquakes so much that he moved to Vegas and really never moved back. That was his personality. He was really funny, easy to talk to. Actually, the other, as an aside, have you seen the movie Judy yet, starring Renee Zellweger?
I have not.
Okay.
I watched a little bit of there's a documentary on Stars I saw, it was Judy and Sid, where it talks about Judy's life and how she was kind of taken advantage of by her studios and her management. They took a lot of her money from her and she didn't get paid.
Right, and she had a tough life. Well, there's a movie starring Renee Zellweger that's out, and she's being talked about for the Academy Awards. Well, Renee was also one of our clients during that time when Michael was our client. And Renee, I just wanted to give her a shout out because Renee was the nicest client I had ever met. She wasn't a star back then. She was just, struggling actress, just starting out. She hadn't even gotten Jerry Maguire at that point.
I liked Renee a lot. I think she's really good in Jerry Maguire, and she's really good in Cold Mountain.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Cold Mountain, which is kind of a sad movie, but she's really good in it.
If I was out sick a day, and the day I got back, Renee would call and she would say, "Shana, where were you yesterday? I missed you." I was just the receptionist. So that kind of stuff really is impressive. Dolly Parton was the same way, but Renee was the nicest. Michael was nice as well. Michael, Dolly, and Renee were our top nicest clients. So I just wanted to say that.
Who were the most not cool?
Martin Lawrence, who, God bless him. I love Martin. He was a friend of mine, but he would get impatient, like if I put him on hold for too long. And, he was young too and just starting. I noticed that the superstars who were established and had nothing to prove, they were the nicest, like Dolly and Michael. But the up-and-comers who sort of, wanted to prove their worth, they were the not nicest. Okay. So Martin, even though he and I were friends, like outside of work, while we were at work, he could be like demanding. Nicole Kidman, she was married to Tom Cruise at the time. Tom Cruise would call in a lot and was super sweet, so nice. Nicole, on the other hand, was never nice. She was always really cold and unfriendly, never talked to me. I have Michael Jackson talking to me and Dolly Parton, but not Nicole Kidman, who no one had really even heard of yet at this point. So I'll always remember who our nice and mean clients are, because we had a lot of them, and we had a lot of people who are now legendary. Right. But it matters how you treat people. So then fast forward 3 years after we did Is This Scary and all that Jordan Chandler stuff was out of the way. Michael called me one day and he was like, "Remember that film we did, back in 1993, Is This Scary?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm gonna redo it. I'm recasting the whole thing, and I'd like for you to be in this new version of it with me." Aww. He said, "Would you?" And he was like stuttering, like as if I would say no. He was like, it was so cute because
screw you, Michael.
Right? No, I'll never be in a music video with you again.
How dare you, sir?
That's so funny. But he was like, he was nervous, and it was so endearing. Michael really, and this was, this was private conversations. No one's listening but us. So the real Michael Jackson was who I'm describing. This nervous, awkward, funny, sweet guy who called me personally and asked me to be in his short film with him. And I'll never forget that. And I was like, "Of course, Michael, I'll do that." And I said, "Are the kids going to be in it who did the first one?" He was like, "Oh, no, they're grown up now, so they can't be in it." He said, "You're the only person I'm asking to come back, just you." And I was like, "Oh, Michael, you are so sweet. Thank you." And so he said,
"I'm going to call my lawyer back and drop my lawsuit that I was just
that I'd made up some, charges because I hadn't heard from you in 2 months.
You pitched my booty that time, and I had to ruin you. Sorry."
But the funny thing is, he told me not to tell my bosses, who were his managers. And I'm like, I didn't even know why he would tell me not to tell his own managers that I'm going to be in a short film with him, which I thought they had put together, Right. But he was like, "Don't tell them that I even called." And I was like, "Okay." And he said, "Okay, well, I'm going to have the casting people call you and, tell you more information." So I was like, "Okay." He was like, "Okay, well, I'll see you next week," or whenever. It was next week, actually, when we started filming. And so then when we hung up, I was thinking, I wonder how the casting people are gonna like know my name or get my number. But sure enough, a couple hours later, the casting people called me and asked for me. And I was thinking, wow, that means Michael knows my full name. He knows my number. He gave it to them. That's impressive, you know? I was like honored, you know? He had the casting people call me. So, I don't know, it's little things like that you think back on and it's like, wow, you know? So they called and they were like, Michael told us to call you. I was like, oh, okay.
Let me ask you a question. In your life, has it been hard for you to imagine that guys might remember you?
Yes.
Get out of here. Get out of here. No way.
I mean, I have a hard time remembering people.
I don't think guys have a hard time remembering that they met you.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. But no,
including Michael. But okay.
You know, you think of Michael Jackson as like this superstar who just doesn't think like normal people do. Like, I don't know, you're just thinking he doesn't remember things. Of course he does.
Yeah, of course he does.
I don't know, you're thinking.
But I also think you're selling yourself short for being
you.
A dynamic young woman that is memorable.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. I don't know. I guess when you're dealing with someone like Michael who meets so many people every day throughout the world, you're just not thinking that he knows anything about you. You know, even though I'd been...
Yeah, I can see that.
At that point, that was like 1996, I had been talking to him on the phone every single day for like 5 years. So I should have, just known that
of course he knows.
It would come naturally.
He likes me, and of course he knows.
Yeah.
All right, so when did the other film happen then?
So about a few days, like a week later, we were on the set filming Ghost.
I'm gonna prove it to you, kid. Let's go.
Yeah,
okay.
It was that
quick. Ghost was kind of a reboot of Is This Scary?
Is This Scary, the Stephen King film.
Okay.
We had a different director. The first director was Mick Garris. This one was Stan Winston, who also passed away not along... it was either after Michael or before Michael, I can't remember. But so Stan Winston was the director, and he was known for all of the wonderful special effects in Jurassic Park and all those great movies. He was an Academy Award winner. So we were on set doing that, and like the first day, we filmed the dance scene. So unlike the first Is This Scary, where we never filmed the dance scene, I guess they were like, well, let's get this dance scene out of the way.
That would be the thing. If I was the money person or one of the producers, I'd be like, listen,
Yes.
Ultimately, people are going to see you sing and dance.
Right.
Let's get that up front.
So that's what they did. So the first day, I remember standing there, and Michael's song "Too Bad" starts blasting through the speakers. He had these huge speakers that were so loud, like you could hear it probably 5 miles away. And Michael loved loud music. I remember sometimes I used to like run into him driving down the street, and he used to drive, by the way. Like Michael, back in the early 90s, used to drive this like white Jimmy SUV, 2-door, cheap, incognito type of vehicle.
Right.
But he would be driving by himself, no bodyguards, but you always knew it was him because the music would be blasting.
And he had a monkey in the car.
No monkeys. But you know what he did have? He had, remember those baby on board things that you would put on your window? He put that on his driver's window so that, when you looked, you couldn't see him, or you could see him, but that was like...
Okay, he had it on the window next to the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
kind of obscure.
Exactly. But he blasted his music in his car, and he always had the best sound systems in all of his cars. So anyway, the first day on the set, we filmed this amazing scene, which was Too Bad. It was Michael performing and dancing to Too Bad.
Yeah, that's Wyclef Jean and Michael remix.
Oh, they remixed it?
Yeah, they did the remix of it's like the sequel to Bad.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song.
It is good. So I was standing like right there, just a few feet, while he and Travis Payne and Lavelle Smith, they were his co-choreographers and dancers as well. And the lights started shining, and the smoke started, coming in, and Michael had this big fan that was blowing the wind through his hair, and he had just been like joking with me before the camera started rolling, we were just like joking about something stupid and silly, and he was just like awkward, silly, funny Michael. But as soon as the camera started rolling and that music started hitting, he became Michael Jackson. You know, he became the king of pop. His eyes, there was like a glint in his eyes, and you know, that glint that he would get. And Janet gets it too, where it's like, And he just transformed, like right before my eyes. And he started dancing. It was like the most amazing choreography I've ever seen in my entire life. And to this day, I do think Ghost is his best choreography ever. What do you think?
Even better than Thriller.
Yeah, like way better. The choreography is what.
I don't know. I'm torn between the choreography in Thriller, and I think the choreography in Smooth Criminal.
Smooth Criminal was amazing.
Amazing.
But Ghost has the best choreography of all.
Well,
I don't know if fans will agree with me. If any fans out there, what film do you think
did his best dancing?
was his best choreography?
Had some great choreography in Remember the Time, and he had some great choreography in The Way You Make Me Feel at the end of The Way You Make Me Feel. He danced a bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Ghost wins. Ghost wins hands down. Too bad. I mean, it was just like mind blowing. I'm not kidding. And I was right there in person, and he did it without any cuts.
As the mayor, because he
eventually did. This first scene, he was Michael, so
right.
I got to see the full Michael Jackson performance of Too Bad as Michael, you know, right in my face, and it was magical. It transcended everything that I've ever witnessed in my life before and after. Like, it was just amazing.
I've seen clips of him dancing as the mayor too, where he's got the fat suit and he's all extra jowly, and
that came towards the end of our shoot. To this dance scene.
Okay.
So I was standing there watching him do the most amazing dancing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm thinking, this is Michael Jackson, you know, right here in front of me. You know, because even though I'd been knowing him at that point for about 5 or 6 years, still, you know, it wasn't lost on me that this was Michael Jackson that I'm dealing with.
Seeing him dance in person must have been...
That's what did it, because when he's not dancing and when he's not like in that music video atmosphere where there's lights and cameras, you're just thinking, oh, it's Michael, you know, he's funny and cute and all that, but it's just Michael. You don't even realize this is Michael Jackson.
Right.
It's kind of like two different people. It really is.
You get a glimpse of that when I watched This Is It, and there's some, you know, because it's a rehearsal video, you kind of see him slip in and out of rehearsal mode, and then, you know, then in a couple of songs he kicks it into gear, and you see that transformation right before your eyes, where he goes from a guy who's just, you know, marking his space and the lights and making sure everybody knows where they're supposed to be, and then all of a sudden he'll kind of perform a little, and you just feel like, wow.
Right. And to witness that in person, I was just in love. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm deeply in love with this man at this point right here. Who I think you would have been, Ted. Do you think?
I love Michael. I've always loved him.
He's pondering the thought. So I'm standing there. He's performing these iconic moves, and in between shots, like when they would stop shooting the dance scene for a while, so that everyone could so the cameras could reset. Michael the whole time I saw him like staring at me. Like whenever they had a break, he would look over at me, and I was thinking, why is he looking at me like this? It kind of made me self-conscious. And then finally, during the next break, he walked over to me, and I was thinking, oh my God, is he going to tell me like to leave the set? Like, what is it? Because I was still nervous. I didn't know, am I supposed to not be here? What?
What did he want?
So he walks over and he says, these were his exact words too. He said, let me ask you a question. And Michael, here's another thing for the fans that maybe you don't know. When Michael was about to ask a direct question, he always said, let me ask you something. Or let me ask you a question. That was how he always started a direct question. And you were like, oh God, what is he going to ask me? Let me ask you something. Do Sandy and Jim know that you're here? Sandy and Jim were his managers, my bosses. And I had found out prior to filming that he had banned Sandy and Jim from the set.
Why?
He wouldn't let them come. He wouldn't let anyone from his office, MJJ Productions, come except for if you were like involved directly in the shooting, like his bodyguards, Yannick and Wayne, they were there.
So what'd you tell him?
So at first I was like stunned because I was thinking, you didn't tell them? You didn't tell them? Because I thought he had told them. And so I said, oh, yeah, they know, because I had to, take off from work for a month. We filmed for a month, so I had to take off a month from work.
Well, I'm not going to tell them.
Yeah.
What excuse are they going to accept?
Right.
Except
I have to tell them.
Except
with Michael.
You're hanging with Michael.
I'm with your biggest client.
It's the only excuse I had.
It's the best excuse. The truth is always the best excuse. I've learned that in life.
Listen, I'm sick.
Right.
For 30 days? No, you need to come up with something more Michael Jackson-y.
Right. I'm like, I didn't know it was a secret. But anyway, I said, oh yeah, I told them. And he said, how did they react? He had suddenly become like so serious about this subject.
So he's paranoid about his bosses, his management.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I guess because he had banned them, it was almost like he was trying to get back at them because they were going through some issues. He was going through issues with Sandy Gallen at that exact time because, they didn't want to, Sony didn't want to fund Ghosts. Okay. Sony refused to
sink any more money in the Michael Jackson.
Money. Yeah, and Ghost was like $7 million. So Sony was like, no, we're not going to spend that kind of money. And this wasn't for the Thriller album. This was for History, which wasn't doing as well as Thriller had done. So why would they spend $7 million in their eyes? But Michael's like, this is what I want to do. This is important, and you need to pay for it. And when they didn't, he blamed Sandy for not sort of like sticking up for him and being in his corner.
Making it happen.
Yeah, and so that's when the whole conspiracy theory that he got into his mind really started being implanted there because he thought everyone was against him because they wouldn't fund his projects. And Ghost was like his baby, his dream project that he had to get it out there because of the message that's in it. It's a really deep film. If you guys can watch it, please do, because every word, every line that he says, it's all deep, and he wanted you guys to hear it and watch it. So anyway, he felt Sandy was in cahoots with Sony. Mm-hmm. He felt everyone was in cahoots with Sony, and they were all against him.
Yeah, I remember that. He made a couple press conferences where he wanted to break ties with Sony.
He called Tommy Mottola the devil.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, he didn't let. I was the only person in the office allowed on set with him, which is amazing. Here the receptionist can come and his own managers can't. So that was pretty deep. So anyway, I told him that I had told them, and he asked what the reactions were. And he was another person. He was very detail oriented. So he always wanted to know like what someone said, what were their exact words, what did they look like when they were saying it. He was that kind of person. Yes. So I told him, and then after we had that little conversation, then he said, oh, and watch your ears, because you're standing right next to the speakers, and I don't want your ears to get hurt. And I didn't even realize I was standing like right next to those huge speakers that were blasting too bad, and he was concerned about my ears. Mm-hmm. So sweet.
Well, I can understand why you would be frustrated, because you made all this money for these people.
Yeah.
All this money, has been flowing through that you've generated from me, and now here I am. So my records aren't selling like they used to. Fine, but I was still. If you think about all the money you already made, for you to put a little back at this point.
Yeah, well, but at that point, he owed them a lot because all of his music videos were expensive. And you don't realize this. People don't realize it, but everything you do with a record label, you have to pay it back. So they'll give you this huge advance. Let's say you get $100 million advance. You have to pay that back. It's an advance. It's not a gift.
Right.
So
Okay.
if you get an advance, if you hear of an artist getting $100 million advance from a record label, sure, that sounds great, but all that means is that you're $100 million in debt to them.
Right.
So he had to
You gotta
pay them back.
do that business. You got to do that business to pay that money back.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, and artists don't really realize that. That's why they go broke. So anyway, back to Ghosts. We continued filming. It was wonderful. He was in a great mood. He was happy. And he and I, because of our past history, we were just always together on set. It would be me, him, and the kids. And we would just play practical jokes on each other. One of my fondest memories of filming Ghosts was the time Michael and I got kicked off of the set.
What?
Yeah, he got kicked off of his own set because of me. And this is a great example of how he was on set when the cameras weren't on. They were setting up the cameras for another scene, so we had some downtime. As you know, when you film TV or film, it's kind of boring.
Yeah, it's a lot of waiting around.
Yeah, a lot of waiting. So we were standing waiting for the next scene to be set up, and we started talking about the other townspeople. And he was that kind of person too. He liked to gossip. He liked to, talk funny about people.
Right.
So we were looking at all the other townspeople, and I was like, "Oh, you see that girl over there?" He was like, "Which one? Which one?" I was like, "That one over there." He was like, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know she is 13 years old?" He was like, "No, she's not. She's 16. I was like, "No, she's 13. I promise." He was like, "I don't believe you." I said, "She is. She's 16. I mean, she's 13." Because she looked older than her age. And he was like, "That one?" I was like, "Yeah, that one." And we were pointing. And then we, we're talking really loud and laughing and very loud. And I think we had both forgotten we were even on the set. And Stan Winston, the director, storms over and says, "Guys, we're filming something here. Can you keep it down? In fact, can you just leave the set because, you're too loud."
Yeah.
So Michael and I looked at each other and we were so embarrassed. But Michael didn't say a word. We just walked off the set. He didn't protest and say, "Hey, look, this is my video." No, he walked right off the set with me, and we continued our laughing off the set.
Oh God, that's amazing.
Yeah, he was really fun and funny, and I have so many great memories with him on that set because I think it was one of the last times he was like truly happy in a work situation and on a music video. And I know that he remembers it fondly as well, because the very last time I saw him, which was New Year's Eve going into 2007, we were in Las Vegas, he mentioned Ghosts, and he started recounting all those fun times we had gone through, and it was still in his memory. It was a happy memory for him. He liked talking about it. So that's why I know a lot of people are like, "Why are you always talking about ghosts and all that?" It's because Michael always talked about it, and that was his happy place, and it was definitely my happy place. It was the happiest time of my life. So
we've reached an hour on the podcast. I'm going to wrap this podcast up. Let's how can we wrap this up? Are you doing anything special this Halloween? Are you going to any parties or doing trick-or-treating? What are you doing? Ironically, I don't celebrate Halloween. Unless there's like some amazing thing. Like a few years ago, I went to the Jackson's house. They have the most amazing Halloween party every year. It was like the best party I've ever been to in my life. Blanket, who's now known as BG, he every year he designs the Jackson home. How old is
he?
And
makes it into a haunted house.
How old is he
now? He's probably like 17. But he's brilliant. He's a genius, really. I think he's going to be like one of the best directors we've ever had in film, because he's literally a genius. And even when he was younger, he would create all of the decorations and all of the special effects for this haunted house. And they have a maze. So yeah, so that was the last thing I ever did for Halloween, and that was a couple of years ago. I just don't like, I'm not the type who likes dressing up in costumes.
Did you dress up for that one? Did you?
Yeah, well, kind of. I was a Laker girl, so I wore my Kobe Bryant Laker. So it was, I made it kind of easy on myself.
Were you a naughty Laker girl?
No, Ted. I was a non-naughty. No. But yeah, it's just too much of a hassle.
So listen, well, we got to wrap this up. I always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah.
Your numbers are always good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
People will tune in and
I appreciate that.
download. That's the only reason I put up with you.
Whatever.
So thanks for listening, everybody. I love you guys. If you don't subscribe, go ahead and subscribe. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us on Stitcher and radio.com. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can find Learning Not to Swear. Thanks for listening. Love you guys. Try to be good.